Good morning and welcome to Market Insights. I am Lavina Emma. Now, as you know, yesterday I talked briefly about the 0.5% cybersecurity levy, and this levy was passed around to all deposit banks all over the country. It's mandating them to take a 0.5% levy for every 5,000 naira, 50,000 naira, 10,000 naira, 100,000 naira, every 1 million naira and 10 million naira that is transferred using our digital banking services. So apart from the regular taxes that we have, like for every text message, there's a 10 naira tax that you have to pay. For every 5,000 naira that you used to transfer money to another bank, there's also a 25 naira or 26 naira, it depends on the bank, that applies. So in addition to this, you now have to pay this 0.5% levy for every time you transfer. So that's quite much for us to be paying right now, because it's a whole lot of money we're paying. We're already paying for all these bank transactions when there's an email alert, when there's a text message alert. Now they've introduced this, and it makes us wonder, citizens of this country, I mean, does the government really have our interest at heart? Introducing another tax levy again, in spite of all this hardship. Inflation is over 33%, food inflation is over 40%. Now we have to deal with another tax levy with cybersecurity. I mean, this is really serious. So my guest this morning is going to go in depth into this issue to discuss further as to, do we really need this 0.5% cybersecurity levy, and what ways would he recommend the government to protect us online, protect our digital finances online, in partnership with the National Security Advisor. Now, that's for the first part of the program. Now, the second part of the program is on cybersecurity in Nigeria. Now, as our nation strides towards achieving a thriving digital economy and building a secure digital landscape, this has become very important to us. So now let's picture this for a minute. Imagine a robust digital ecosystem where businesses can transact with confidence. Now, this is the future we are working towards in Nigeria, a future fueled by e-commerce, online banking, and seamless digital transactions. Now, that's something we all look forward to. Not having network issues on want to transact online. I mean, it can become a nightmare after a while. But this vision hinges on one crucial element: cybersecurity. Now, Nigeria faces unique cybersecurity challenges, from evolving cyber threats to developing a digital infrastructure. We need to be proactive in this country, and the solutions lie in a multi-pronged approach. First, we need a continuous investment in cybersecurity infrastructure. Now, this includes robust cloud security solutions and cutting-edge security tools. Secondly, fostering a culture of cybersecurity awareness. Now, this is very important. As you know, I've mentioned this on the program before, that with Generation X, millennials, and Generation Z, there's been a break in the use of technology. Yes, a few people in Generation X know how to maneuver the way on the internet using accessing digital finance platforms. But when it comes to our elderly citizens, this is a bit of an issue. And because of this break in this understanding the technology, there have been cases where they have been scammed online and defrauded of their money online. So educating businesses and individuals about cyber threats and the best practices and the best way to go about this is also very important, because we need to educate everyone, both young and old people need to be aware of these cyber threats and how to go about these issues. So my guest and I this morning will be discussing how we should achieve this, how we can achieve best cybersecurity practices, and what ways we can actually achieve a seamless digital transaction, whether we are online with our finances or any other system that we need to access on the internet. So after the break, I'll be introducing my guest, who is right here in the studio with me. So join us after the break. He's a seasoned technology and cybersecurity expert with over 30 years of experience. He's also the MD/CEO of Wimika RMS Technologies. Welcome to Market Insights, Morakinyo.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm glad to be here.
I'm happy to have you here this
To
morning.
contribute to this discussion.
Certainly, certainly. That's why you're right here with us, and you look great this morning.
Thank you. You do the same as well.
Thank you. Okay, so now first of all, let's start with the 0.5% cybersecurity levy. Now, on all electronic transfers, as I mentioned, it's not like we're taking away the previous amounts of being paying for when we receive an email alert or a text message alert for financial transactions. This is not removed. So adding this in addition to what we're paying, I mean, isn't this too much for Nigerians? First of all, let's start with our daily transactions as individuals before we talk about small businesses. I mean, how will the common Nigerian cope with this kind of new tax?
Okay, so thank you very much.
But before we talk about how they will cope, could you just enlighten us further on the 0.5 cybersecurity levy?
Okay, so I'll try and do the best I can. So it's important for us to even realize that even as at this point, there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of gray area concerning this matter. Some people are asking, is it 0.5% or is it 0.005%? Because in the Cybercrime Act, from which this has come out, what is written there is 0.005 without any percentage at the end of it. So some people are interpreting that as 0.005. Some people are saying it can't be 0.005. It has to be 0.005%. Now, if it's 0.005, the first thing that comes to my mind is the days of COTs, 5 naira per meal. Okay, and for some reasons, the central bank looked at the Nigerian economy and the government as well, and they decided that the era of COT should come to an end. So is this COT coming back dressed as cyber? You know, is this COT in disguise? Because if it's 5 naira per meal, that's like bringing back COT on top of every other thing. And I think that would be really unfair to the Nigerian populace. It would be unfair to the economy if we are reintroducing COT through the back door after we had earlier on established that COT was not necessary for the functioning of the industry. Okay, so that's one gray area. Is it 0.005 or 0.005%? Okay, and there are other gray areas. Okay, so a lot of people think this is central bank, this is Nigerian banks, but the money is really not for central bank or Nigerian banks. They are just collectors. They are collectors for the office of the NSA. So all they are doing is they are mopping up money and it's going to be transferred to an account, a special fund, National Cybersecurity Fund, that's under the administration and management of the NSA. That's a different conversation entirely. Should the people of Nigeria be the ones funding that responsibility for cybersecurity in the country? So there are obviously different angles to look at this from. But one thing I can say very much is that it is contentious, it is trending, it's controversial, and people are up in arms. The first response of most people is like a reflex action, and I can't blame them. When you feel like you've been ambushed, the natural reaction is likely to be a reflex action, and that's what we are seeing all over the place. People are just responding. Very few people are calmed down to look at it in totality and begin to, proffer solutions, because a new problem has been created now, and that problem has to be resolved before we can go forward.
Well, I wouldn't call it a new problem because in our country we've been having cybersecurity issues for a while now. It's not a new problem. I would say, ever since the introduction of the internet and digital banking services online, we've been having issues of people's accounts getting hacked. That's one. People falling prey to all sorts of fraudulent schemes on the internet. So that's another issue. So we've been experiencing cybersecurity issues for a long time. But okay, now the common man on the street. Now let me say those who are not, perhaps those who are working 9-to-5 jobs, the traders in the market, people who sometimes we use the POS machines to pay for our transactions. Sometimes we just transfer money. Now, how would this affect all these people? Because this is something very serious.
Okay, so that's the second gray area. And before I address that, when I said a new problem is being introduced, I'm not talking about the cyber threat issue. I'm talking about this levy.
Oh,
It has
yes.
created a problem,
Yes, it
okay,
has.
that everybody is talking about now. And until that problem is discussed and resolved, we are not likely to go on to face the real issue, which is that there really is a problem. There is a problem of cyber threat. As a country, we should be interested in solving that problem. Now, it's a question of how best do we go about solving the problem. And I will say with a bit of clarity that throwing money at it will not solve the problem. It's not a problem you solve by just throwing money at it. Just yesterday, the United Kingdom Ministry of Defense was hacked. It's not for a lack of money. Okay, so we must understand that money by itself and on its own will not solve the problem of cybersecurity. With this levy, all people see is the fact that money is going to be gathered, and it's a huge sum of money. Okay, but let's leave that and come to the everyday people. That's the second gray area, the second major gray area in this circular. Okay, so in the act itself, Nigeria National Cyber Crime Act 2015 amended 2024, it talks specifically about deductions from businesses. Now, and it says that there will be an addendum of the type of businesses that the deductions should be done from. So I don't know where suddenly it has swung all the way to be something that's going to affect all of us. You know, I know whatever affects businesses affects us indirectly, but it shouldn't be. We shouldn't even be talking about individuals doing transactions and being concerned about this deduction or this levy, because in the act itself, it is specific in mentioning businesses, unless you're saying every Nigerian individual is a business now. Okay, so that's another gray area that needs to be addressed. Is this something that's affecting businesses? What kind of businesses does it affect? What is happening to individuals? If I want to transfer money to Lovina, for instance, will I be charged? Okay, so those are some of the things that those behind this policy need to bring clarity to very quickly.
Okay. And so, because right now everybody is talking about it, and the fact that, okay, like you mentioned, it's supposed to be something for businesses, like it's supposed to be a levy on businesses, whether you're a small business owner or a big time industry owner. So it's supposed to affect all of them. But the issue is, as you mentioned, everybody is affected. And as you know, if a business is taxed heavily instantly, for example, if you own a supermarket and you're taxed heavily, immediately you increase the prices of your food items or whatever products you're selling, and the consumer ends up paying for that because you need to make your profit. So even in that kind of space, yes, at the end of the day, even if they say it's only for businesses, but the individual citizens in this country will still be affected by this issue. So it's not really helping when they just limit it to that.
Totally
Actually,
agree.
it's not.
You know, so again, with as with almost everything, we've got to look at it and say, and that's again is an area where I think the government is falling short. Even though we are citizens of Nigeria, you've got to sell us some value. You shouldn't just tell us you're levying us or taxing us without telling us what's the value. People can't see the value they're going to get out of this. And if they can't see the value, then the only thing you will expect is for this kind of shouting and people being upset and everything. So what's the value to me, Morakinyo? What's the value to you, Lovina, that you want to be taking 5 naira out of your 1,000
Yeah.
every time you're doing a transaction? Okay, until that value is sold and we see that value clearly, then there's no way that this will not meet with resistance. Okay, so one of the things in the Cybercrime Act is that the office of the NSA is supposed to be responsible for critical national infrastructure. Okay, and part of this fund is supposed to go towards the maintenance of the critical national infrastructure. In any ideal country, the critical national infrastructure should be of importance to everybody. Okay, but in Nigeria, for instance, first of all, many of us don't even know what our critical national infrastructure are. Okay, so in most countries, for example, a critical national infrastructure will be the electric grid, for instance, electricity grid, power grid. But in Nigeria, if you say the power grid is a critical national infrastructure, for most Nigerians, we really don't feel, I'm sure we really don't feel like that. Even without cybersecurity issues, the grid is breaking down. Okay, there are times where there will be total outage, you know, and if that is happening without cybersecurity, then why should we be discussing taking money from us to maintain a grid when we have already insulated ourselves from the fact that, well, this critical infrastructure will break down anyway, and we have to cope with the consequences or the outcomes of that breakdown. So it's a lot, but I think it calls both the government and the people to a place where we have to begin to ask ourselves, what value are the citizens of Nigeria getting? If they're not getting any value, or you can't show them the value they are getting, do you have a right? Are you in a strong position to be able to ask them to bring an additional fee or additional money when you can't show them the value you're going to give them? Uh, Especially when there's already distrust. As far as most Nigerians are concerned, their taxes and every money they've paid in the past has not yielded sufficient value. So it's a hard sell. It's a hard sell.
It is. So would you suggest a perhaps maybe having a conference with stakeholders and citizens of the stakeholders in our cybersecurity industry, like let us enlighten citizens of what they stand to gain with this tax? Or would you just say, let's scrap this whole thing, we don't need a tax? Because as you mentioned, we have critical infrastructure in this country that a cybersecurity levy should be protecting, but we haven't seen that. And also we always experience every now and then, or the national grid has collapsed. So even without a cybersecurity levy, this has been happening. So what are your thoughts on this? Would you go for, oh, let's scrap it, or would you say, let's educate citizens on the benefits of this? What would you suggest?
I would say let's put it on hold.
Okay.
Let's have a discussion, a robust discussion. Let people that should be involved in this discussion. It can be a decision that's made by NSA or a small committee when it's something that affects all of us. In advanced countries, when there are big issues, they even go as far as doing referendums. I'm not saying a referendum should be done for this.
But that's not a bad idea.
At least the people that are representative of those that are going to be affected by this should be involved. They should know. They should know the criteria or the basis for collecting the money. They should know what that money is going to be used for. It's like somebody saying that I'm going to collect money from you. After I collect money from you, I'll come up with a budget and a plan. Because we don't see any budget. We don't see any plan. We don't know how the money is going to be used. We don't know how it's going to be allocated. We don't know who is going to, well, we know the Office of the National Security Advisor is going to administer it. But hey, it's not part of the budget. And the kind of figures we are talking about is not small numbers, Lovina. We are talking about, depending on who you listen to, we are talking about between 3 trillion and 4 trillion annually. The entire Nigerian budget, how much is it? I think it's 30 something, 36 or 37, there about trillion.
Trillion. Yeah.
So we are saying that we want to generate about 10% or more of the Nigerian budget from the Nigerian citizens outside of taxes. A fresh line item entirely. Okay? And this amount, interestingly, is more than the amount that was budgeted for defense. It's more than the amount that was budgeted for health. It's more than the amount that was budgeted for education.
So it makes us wonder.
There's a lot of room to, for someone to wonder about this. I recognize, and I think most people, even you will attest to this, recognize that there is a cyber problem. It's not that there is no problem, but we must agree how we want to solve that problem. And we must agree who is going to pay for it.
Well, if you put that out there, like perhaps do a vox pop on the streets and ask who's going to pay for our cybersecurity problem, everybody will say, oh, the federal government should handle that. I mean, that's why we elected our leaders. They should pay for it. But, okay, but that being said, we have experts in this country like yourself and other cybersecurity experts that can actually handle this issue. But look, going forward now, what would you recommend to business owners, particularly the small business owners, having this new tax imposed on them? And then how would you, if you were a part of the committee that created this, how would you go around this? How would you advise that we should do this should it just be announced like the way it was announced yesterday, and everybody said, "But why? Why are they doing this to us? It looks so insensitive."
So every I've been a small business owner, so I know I have a very fair idea what small business owners are looking for. They are looking for an environment where their businesses can thrive. They are looking for facilitators of business. They are looking for an opportunity to exchange their value. Okay, how is this levy going to contribute to that? That's the question every business owner would want to know. If you can show a business owner that this will lead to their business experiencing greater profits, experiencing greater sales, they are going to sit down with you and they are going to look at it and probably embrace it. But if you can't show them how this contributes, if all they see is that government has come again, they are coming to tax us again. They are coming to make life more difficult for us. In fact, when you speak to small business owners, and I have a lot of them that I speak to and advise, one of the things they say is that if only government can just leave us alone and let us do our thing, we will do well. That government is one of our problems. And you shouldn't have a situation where business owners are seeing government as a problem. And this policy has not helped the matter. What they've just seen is that government has come with another problem. And it has taken everybody's focus away from what the real deal should be. The real deal in all of this is that, is there a cyber threat problem? Is there a cyber problem? There is. But nobody is looking at that anymore. Everybody is all flustered and upset about the fact that the government is trying to place the burden on the citizens.
Okay. Okay. Well said, well said. Yes, and as my guest Morakinyo Animasaun said, yes, we shouldn't just scrap this whole thing. There is a cybersecurity problem in the country, and it can be solved if we all work together. If there's a partnership with the federal government, state government, and also private individuals and key stakeholders in our cybersecurity industry. So let's take a short break now. When we return, we're going to talk about the cybersecurity problem in Nigeria, the challenges and solutions to this problem. Join us after the break. Welcome back. So I'm still talking with my guest in the studio, Morakinyo Animasaun. He's a cybersecurity expert with over 30 years experience and the CEO of Wimika RMS Technology. So now we're going to talk about cybersecurity in Nigeria. Now the challenges facing businesses and particularly individuals in this country. As I mentioned during the introduction of the program, sometimes we could access our banking app and then maybe we've clicked on something wrongly. Instead of calling our customer care, we might think, oh, we can solve this easily. And before you know it, we're clicking on things we should not, and we have falling prey to something. And next thing, accounts are being hacked, money is stolen, and you're panicking, you're worried, you're rushing to the bank, and then the bank just looks so helpless in this whole thing, like, oh, you did it yourself, we can't help you, and you're shocked, like, but I thought this was supposed to be, I put my money here, you're supposed to protect me, and then they tell you, no, don't click on this, don't click on that. Now, how the cybersecurity situation in Nigeria, I know it needs a lot of enlightenment, education for everybody, both young and old people. Like, we all need to be educated on how to protect ourselves on the internet. But before we talk about that now, the challenges for cybersecurity in Nigeria, could you enlighten us on this?
Okay, thank you again, Lavina. There are lots of challenges, and please let's realize that cybersecurity issues or cyber threats are not peculiar to Nigeria. It's a global problem. Okay, so we are just part of that global problem. Okay, some people are doing better at solving their part of the global problem than others. And even if you're trying to solve the problem, you can't be insular in trying to solve the problem because your attacker may be in North Korea, your attacker may be in China. So it's not just a Nigerian problem, even though there is a Nigerian angle to the problem. No. Now, having said all of that, when we say cybersecurity problem, for most of us on an everyday level, what we are really talking about is cyber fraud. Yes. So if you give it that big name, we are trying to, for most Nigerians, what they are talking about is cyber fraud. Okay? And cyber fraud is a big problem, huge problem in Nigeria. Um, and the experiences of people so far has not been very good. According to data, less than 5% of people that have experienced cyber fraud ever get to recover it in Nigeria. So for every 20 people that are victims of cyber fraud, one person is the only one that will get to recover the money they've lost. So there is a huge loss. Okay, the money that's lost through cyber fraud, according to NIBS reports, is in billions of naira. Okay, so it's a huge industry. Okay, and because the barrier to entry is low, one of the things that's happening is that more people are coming into that industry. We call them Yahoo Yahoo boys. We call them 419. Recently, the EFCC chairman was talking about a school where they train teenagers to be Yahoo Yahoo. Okay, that's not a technology problem. That's a social problem.
Yes.
And until we begin to treat cyber security, aka cyber fraud, more specifically, as a multi-dimensional problem that it is, and address it from multi-dimensional angle, we are not going to get far with solving it. We can't just throw technology at it. We can't just throw money at it. One of the interesting but sad things I found out I've been involved in cyber fraud, trying to create a solution for cyber fraud over the past 3 years. I'm about to do a lot of interview and engagement with so many people across the nation. And one of the interesting but sad things I found out is that if you tell a regular Nigerian parent that your child is a thief, they will be so upset and depressed and angry. But there is a large number of people that if you tell them your child is 419, it is nothing. It means nothing to them. So they don't equate being a 419 with being a criminal. That is an orientation. That's a value problem. It's got to change. That has to be addressed as a value problem. There is the enforcement arm of it that has to be addressed. There is the recovery arm of it that's got to be addressed. There is the prevention part of it that's got to be addressed. And of course, there is the awareness. Because whether you like it or not, even if you put the best technology in place, put somebody that is ignorant in front of that technology, and the person will make a mess out of it.
Yes, I totally agree with you on that. In fact, these days, some people justify the cyber fraud by saying, "Oh, after all, the British people, they enslaved us, they colonized us, so we're just
Repatriation.
yes, it's a repatriation, and that shouldn't be the case. In fact, if they were, it's really not a good thing at all. If they were even if limiting it to white people, so people living in the US and the UK, but even here in Nigeria, there have been cases where elderly people's accounts get hacked. Not just even young people, you by clicking on the wrong email or a wrong link online, and the next thing you're seeing funds disappearing from your account. So it's something that, as you said, it needs to be really talked about, and a lot of orientation needs to be looked into this issue, because the fact that people don't get upset when you say, "Oh, your child stole," and then when you see your child is into Yahoo Yahoo, as they popularly call it, and then they're not bothered, like, yeah, it's all right. At least you'll make a lot of money, and they're like, no. We need to change our values in this part of the world, especially when it comes to raising the next generation, because they don't see it as anything wrong. And the fact that there are schools teaching children this, no, this is something that needs to be looked into. Now, let's talk about it in the business sector. Now, how can businesses of all sizes improve on their cybersecurity? As you said, you've spoken to a lot of small business owners, and then they talk about the challenges in this sector. So, how can they improve on their cybersecurity?
So number one will always be number one, which is awareness. Someone that's not aware will always do something wrong. Okay, so awareness, there's a need for a lot of enlightenment, a lot of education. In December, I was a convener of a not-for-profit initiative, Stronger Together Against Cyber Fraud. So from about October last year to December, we did a lot of advocacy, and we just did a lot to try and raise awareness. We did webinars and all of that. And we did all of that because we realized that the foundation for improving cyber fraud is knowledge. The more knowledgeable the people are, the better they will be as being a layer of defense against cyber fraud. Ignorant people cannot be a good layer of defense. And we've got to create that first layer of defense, which is to create awareness. People must know, they must know what to avoid, they must know what to do, they must know what's best practice. So education is a first layer. However, I tell people that awareness alone is not enough because of the level of sophistication of cyber criminals. So even people that thought that they were gurus to a level have fallen prey. Okay, so cyber criminals are sophisticated. They continue to get more sophisticated. You know, when people get excited about technology, I just smile. Because for me, I've learned over the years to see technology as a double-edged sword. You know, technology is good for the good guys, but the bad guys also use the same technology. When cloud technology became the thing, I mean, many businesses benefited from cloud technology, but cyber criminals also benefited from cloud technologies. Today, you have malware as a service, you have fraud as a service, and all of those things are powered by the cloud. And those are things that would have been ordinarily very difficult to set up. But cloud has made it easy. So the same way technology is benefiting the good guys, benefiting businesses, we must also realize that the bad guys are also using technology for malicious purposes.
Okay, that's true. That's true. As you said, yes, more awareness needs to be given to people. Yes. Okay, let's take a short break now. When we return, we're going to still discuss further with my guest. Welcome back. So, my guest has given us gone in depth into this issue, explaining the how we can protect ourselves as individuals online and also for businesses too. So, yes, let's talk about data privacy. That's a growing concern because everywhere we go, we're told to fill forms both on paper and also online. Sometimes we have to fill Google forms, and we often wonder, like, who's storing all this information? Can it be hacked at any point in time? So now, how can Nigeria ensure a robust legal framework that protects citizens while fostering a thriving digital economy?
Okay, thank you again, Lovina. Nigeria has actually done a good job, at that. A good job in terms of putting a framework in place. I don't know how good a job is being done in terms of implementation and enforcement, but the framework is in place, NDPR, NDPA, so there's a framework in place. The framework is robust. It's similar to the GDPR. So there is, I mean, anyone that's a professional or an expert in that area recognizes the work or the effectiveness of that framework. However, a framework does not work itself. People have to work it, okay? And that's where implementation and enforcement comes in. I don't know how well it's being enforced. I can't speak to that, but I know there's a framework in place. Now, I think as part of the implementation, there should also be a concerted effort. Again, we are going back to the issue of awareness. How aware are people about this data privacy framework? How aware are people about what is right and what is wrong? Okay, so for instance, I still smile when I go to quite a number of organizations where you have to sign in when you're going to come into the organization. They'll ask for your name, they'll ask for your address, they'll ask for your phone number in one long exercise book. And I keep asking myself, what happens to this exercise book when it's full? Somebody will probably dump it somewhere. But that is enough reason for somebody to sue for a data privacy infraction. Because if you dump all of that data somewhere and someone that's going through a bin can just pick up that exercise book, get my phone number, my name, get my phone number, get my address. Those are private PIIs, personally identifiable information that should not be in somebody's hand. The moment you took it from me, you have taken the responsibility to, to keep and use that data for the purpose for which you have collected it. Now, if you have gone beyond that or you have not taken enough care afterwards, Nobody can tell me that all the organizations that get us to write our names, that they shred that book after it's full. So there are lots of issues. I'm taking it from the low level up to the higher level. Many times when we look at these things, we just see online alone, but it's not just online. It's about access to people's data and what you do with it. Do you have their permission to do whatever you're doing with that data? So there's a lot, but the good thing is that there's a framework. It's just about working with that framework, the implementation and enforcement of that framework.
Okay, and basically like you said, being responsible with this information that you have received, because anybody that gets this information needs to protect the person supplying them with this information. As you know, we are living in a world where there's so much insecurity. It's not until you carry a gun that you can start talking about insecurity. So this needs to be really protected. And everybody that is involved in collecting people's information has a huge responsibility to play in protecting that information. So
Yeah, but somebody has to. Most things are about consequences. If there's no consequence, I collect your data, even if I don't intend to use it maliciously. If I'm just careless or negligent with your data, there should be a consequence. But I don't see enough indication of those consequences yet. Maybe because we are at the early stages, maybe that will come.
yes, I believe it will come. This internet thing, yes, we have been using it since the 21st century, but we're not like most westernized countries that have had a longer period of time to get used to it and learn from their mistakes. So as a growing nation, I know that we will get there. We'll be able to overcome all these issues and improve on our cybersecurity.
I like your
Yes,
optimism.
yes,
Is-
that's the only way.
One of the things I tell people is that time alone does not solve problems. So
True,
if you
but
just think that the passage of time, that after we are at it for 20 years, then automatically we will be better at it. No, it doesn't automatically. So we must be doing the right things. Some of those right things are there. One of the things that excites people that are in this sector is the quality of the minister of communications
and information and
I
technology,
mean,
yes.
it's someone that's well respected in the industry and someone that knows what he's doing. So those kind of things, they engender confidence, and I think we are on the right track, but we must just make sure that we don't go off track because it's
Certainly.
very easy to go off track.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, now before we round up the program now, cyber crime, as you mentioned, the whole purpose of cyber crime, cyber security is to protect critical national assets in the country. As you mentioned, our power grid, for example, that's something that needs to be protected. So how can Nigeria as a country with our federal government, how can we balance the need for digitalization while safeguarding essential systems, preventing them from cyber attacks? You also mentioned at the beginning of the program that the United Kingdom securities was attacked online, their security system. But I know that that's a well-developed nation, so they can handle that and they can overcome it. So, but we haven't experienced that yet, and hopefully we will not. But how can we protect ourselves from this kind of cyber attacks? How can we protect our key digital assets from cyber attacks?
Okay, so we can say we haven't experienced it, or we can say we are not aware whether we have experienced it.
That's serious.
Yeah, and when I'm talking about awareness, I'm not even talking about the information being made public. It's well established in cybersecurity that there are times that malicious actors are actually within people's system and they go undetected for 200. At the time, the average was 255 days. So a hacker or a malicious actor is within your environment, is gaining access to information, and for 255 days you're not even aware it's there. Okay, so being aware is a step in the right direction. So the Ministry of Defense, they had a hack and they were able to detect, that there was a hack. That itself is a step. So there are different levels. I mentioned awareness. After awareness, you want to prevent. If you can't prevent, you want to detect as quickly as possible that there is someone in my house. It's like, let's use our houses as an analogy. Okay, you want to prevent a thief from coming into your compound. But if somehow the thief breaches your gate man and all of that, if they have entered your compound, you don't want them to be able to be in your compound for the next 10 hours, 12 hours doing their thing. You want something that will tell you as quickly as possible that we have an intruder in this place. So those are, the different ways that we have to look at cybercrime. It's multi-layered, it's multidimensional. We must address it as a multi-layer, multidimensional thing, and it requires collaboration. It's not, no man is an island in this. The internet itself, by its nature, is interconnectedness, and because we are interconnected, your breach or your weakness, your vulnerability can become a problem for me. Okay, there are many organizations that on their own we are quite well secure, but they had a partner who wasn't as secure, and that partner's vulnerability led to a breach for them. So there's a lot. It's conversation that, and it's a conversation I love, by the way, that I can be here and having with you for the next 24 hours, and I won't even ask you for coffee.
Okay. Thank you so much, Morakinyo Animasaun, for joining us this morning on Market Insights as we talked about the 0.5% cybersecurity levy and cybersecurity in Nigeria as a whole. How can individuals, businesses protect themselves from being hacked, cyber fraud, cybersecurity? How do we protect our data, whether we are online or offline? And like you said, a lot of education, awareness, enlightenment, and protecting ourselves even before these issues happen is very key in this part of the world. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning on Market Insight. It was a pleasure discussing these issues with you, and I look forward to having these discussions again.
Thank you very much. I look forward to having another opportunity to look at a very critical problem.
Okay, well said. Okay, let's look at our money market figures this morning. How the naira is faring, the selling rate for the dollars, pound sterling, and the euro. So, for today, Wednesday, 8th of May, the dollar right now is 1,317 naira to $1. That's at the CBN rate. The parallel market rate is 1,445 naira to $1. And the pound sterling at the CBN rate is 1,664 naira to £1 sterling. The parallel market is 1,780 naira to £1 sterling. The euro, it's 1,434 naira to €1. In the parallel market is 1,500 naira to €1. So those are our money market figures this morning. Thank you so much for watching Market Insights as we went in depth into this issue of the 0.5% cybersecurity levy and also cybersecurity as a whole in Nigeria, how we need to enlighten ourselves, be more informed, and be more educated about these issues because it's something that can happen to anyone in any part of the world. And my guest has really explained further on what it means for this cybersecurity levy that has been imposed on every single person in this country. So it's been a pleasure discussing these issues with you. And till we meet again tomorrow, I am your host, Lavina Emma.